Tonight on News 11, we begin a 6-part series on life behind the Berlin Wall.
Meteorologist Paul Douglas has a very special connection to East Germany. He joins us now with the story.
Well, Kevin and Joan, I have been to West Germany on several occasions. I still have quite a bit of family living in Bavaria. My father grew up in Germany, what is now East Germany, the Germany most people will never see. Nothing prepared me for what I would find behind the wall. Germany. The mere mention conjures up images of storybook villages, dark beer, and pricey cars zipping down the Autobahn. But there's another Germany. The division of Europe after World War II created the GDR, the German Democratic Republic, what we call East Germany, a land of vast collective farms, plastic two-cylinder cars, Russian troops, and one of the most heavily fortified borders on Earth. The Iron Curtain is more than a political division. It's more than a barrier. It's also a time machine. If you wanted to see what Germany looked like before World War II, all you'd have to do is cross over into the East, because here, time has stood still.
And it's strange. Suddenly it's 1939 again. Walking down the street here is like being in a time warp. There are no shopping centers, no modern stores, no car dealers, no used car lots. Nothing that we've added in the West since 1946. I left this town when I was 16 in 1946, and it looks the same.
This is my father. He spent much of his childhood in what is now East Germany. Today, some 42 years later, he would return to see what, if anything, was left of his boyhood home.
You have two Germanys now that share a common language and a common heritage, but not much else. Two totally different political systems. As far as I can see, it's going to stay this way for a long time.
Twice as big, with 3 times as many people, West Germany still refuses to accept East Germany as a separate, independent country.
We are looking and striving for the reunification of the two Germanys. This is one of the basic ideas in our Constitution. We are parts of one nation, of one German nation, 2 states, 2 countries, but one nation.
Tomorrow we begin our journey behind the wall. Paul Douglas, News 11. Kevin and Joan, we almost didn't get the story done. We thought we would have to pay a few $100s for our guide, Victor Homela, who told us what we could videotape, what we could not videotape, something, frankly, we weren't used to. We got over there, they demanded thousands of dollars for filming rights. And they didn't know we were a local TV station. They assumed that, well, CBS paid this and NBC paid this. And it went back and forth. We thought we'd have to leave the country empty-handed. Eventually, we negotiated it down to a few $100s. And there we were sitting in a cafe writing out American Express traveler's checks to the communist regime in East Germany. It was kind of bizarre. We found some unusual things, and we'll tell you all about it this week.
And you're happy to be home.
Happy to be home.
You bet.
Thank you, Paul.
Tonight on News 11 Extra, we continue a story we started last night on News 11, going behind the wall in East Germany.
Paul Douglas joins us now with the story. Paul?
Diana and Paul, it was a trip my father and I had been pondering for many years. After nearly 6 months of planning, letter writing, and repeated phone calls, we were finally granted permission to travel throughout East Germany, the first local American TV station to be allowed this kind of access. And as you'll see tonight, the contrast between East and West is rather amazing.
Borders, moats, walls were put up to keep the enemy out. For the first time in the history of the human race, do we have a border that keeps the people in.
The Iron Curtain, an 800-mile-long scar running the length of Central Europe. This no-man's land of flattened trees, barbed wire, and watchtowers stretches from the cold waters of the Baltic southward to the Adriatic Sea. My father spent much of his childhood in what is now Soviet-controlled East Germany. Today, more than 40 years later, we would cross the Iron Curtain together and return home. But not without a struggle.
Guten Morgen. Wohin wollen Sie reisen?
Nach Leipzig und nach Berlin.
East German officials wanted to know our itinerary, the hotels we plan to stay in, Even the questions we would ask on camera, nothing was left to chance. And because we were the first local American television station to travel extensively through East Germany, we were assigned a guide. Victor Homela would be our traveling companion, telling us what we could videotape and what was off limits. He quickly pointed out the main difference between American farms and the sprawling collective farms of East Germany.
It is the property of the people, of the working class, and the land belongs to the farmers.
Farmers here are given small plots of land to grow crops for profit, but the state controls wages, prices, and quotas. It's a nation where farmers earn more than factory workers.
But roughly speaking, most of the people earn more or less the same.
That's about 1,000 marks, or $700 a month. Medical care is cheap. The AIDS epidemic has affected only a handful of people. There's little crime and virtually no drug problem. But the biggest advantage of socialism, East German style?
There's no unemployment because a job is guaranteed to everyone.
Still, there are nagging problems. Serious shortages of housing, food, and cars. Victor has been waiting 12 years to buy an East German Trabant, a two-cylinder plastic car powered by a lawnmower engine. His dream car? A Yugo. Most of these people will never see the West. For every 10 East Germans who ask to leave the country legally, only 2 will be permitted to emigrate, and chances are those 2 will be older retirees.
You sacrifice personal freedom. You can't travel. You're locked up behind this wall.
Wednesday, we reached the Twin Cities of Berlin. Paul and Diana, most of my relatives in Germany were able to flee to the West before the Iron Curtain went up. If you could prove that you were born in West Germany, you could legally emigrate. My father had his report card from kindergarten. Based on that, he was able to legally cross over into the West.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right, look forward to tomorrow night. Thanks. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Tonight on News 11 Extra, we look at the continued friction between East and West Germany in our series Behind the Wall.
Paul Douglas joins us now with that story. Paul?
Diana, Paul, there are actually 2 walls with what they call a death strip in between. In recent years, East Germany has tried to lessen tensions by removing landmines, automatic machine guns, and most of the watchtowers. But the wall remains a big source of frustration and anger.
If you talk to a Berliner, let's say in East Berlin, he will never say, I'm an East Berliner or I'm an East German, but they will say, I'm a German and I am a Berliner.
Berlin, a city with a split personality. West Berlin, a colorful, bustling city of over 2 million people, completely surrounded by a 71-mile-long fortification, the Berlin Wall. In East Berlin, you can't go near the wall, but in the West, you can go right up and touch it. It looks a little like an international edition of the New York subway system. Graffiti is everywhere. On the night of August 16th, 1961, East Germany began stringing barbed wire across the border. They called their hastily constructed barricade the Anti-Fascist Protective Barrier.
The East Germans claim the border was put up to keep capitalist influences, black marketeering, and sabotage out. In truth, before the wall went up, 3,000 people a day fled. That was 21,000 a week. So, they put up the wall in order to keep the people from escaping.
Our East German guide, Victor Homela, disagreed with my father's reasoning.
The 2 German states belong to different political, military, and economic alliances. We have to have an armed border as long as there is a belief in the threat from the other side.
Late August 1988, a tourist with a home movie camera captures a daring escape to freedom. 4 East Germans swim across the river, separating East and West. These people were lucky. They made it. But since 1961, nearly 200 East Germans have been killed trying to flee to the West. I asked my father if he thought the wall would ever come down.
I don't think the wall will come down in my lifetime, perhaps in yours.
Erich Honecker, the leader of East Germany, has recently eased travel restrictions. Paul and Diana, last year over 1 million people legally visited West Germany from the east. I do want to point out, though, that entire families are never permitted to leave to travel into West Germany at the same time. Always somebody has to stay behind to provide the ultimate incentive for these people to come back to East Germany. My father calls it something of a hostage situation. He's somewhat opinionated, but that may be pretty close to the truth.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Interesting.
You bet.
Tonight on News 11 Extra, I'll look at the sports machine behind the wall in East Germany.
Paul Douglas joins us now with the story. Paul?
Diana, Paul, it is an incredible program behind the wall. The state-run athletics program in East Germany has produced 116 gold medals in just 4 Olympic Games. That's 1 gold medal for every 146,000 people, an unbelievable statistic. And they make no bones about it in East Germany. Excellence in sports is their way of proving that their system is superior to ours. East Germany, a nation with a huge inferiority complex. Its uneasy neighbor to the west is one of the richest countries on earth. In fact, many West Germans look upon East Germans as their poor cousins living across the border. But East Germany has found an effective way of grabbing headlines and prestige. During the Winter Olympics, Katharina Witt skated her way into the hearts of viewers worldwide. Her teammates won 25 medals. And East Germany, with a population the size of New York State, placed second in total medals, just behind the Soviet Union and ahead of the United States. How did they do it?
It is part of our philosophy to detect capabilities early and to further them.
Professor Carl Siegfried Pieper is director of the Sports Academy in Leipzig. Home to over 500 teachers and scientists, the academy trains the leaders of sports clubs throughout East Germany, helping these trainers to, in turn, weed out the very best athletes and help them to reach their peak potential.
The human body almost always adjusts to increasingly higher requirements. We adjust our goals, so we always get higher and higher results.
This is a 9-year-old. She's no beginner, though. She's already had 2.5 years of training. Here she's being observed, watched. And if she shows enough potential and promise, she moves on to the next level of training, one step closer to the Olympics.
Und stehen. 1, 2, 3, 4.
We look for talent throughout our country. There are 3 distinct phases. In the first phase, a girl, usually around the age of 10, begins her sports activity and is being observed. The best are selected and go into phase 2, where they join a local sports club. The third phase consists of training in a sports school and joining one of the national teams for a variety of sports.
The bottom line? In America, athletes are pretty much on their own. But in East Germany, the state supports athletes, paying for everything from training to travel to education. East Germany seems to be a nation obsessed with sports. This is the huge sports and recreation center in East Berlin, what is possibly the world's first enclosed sports mall. For about a dime, you can choose from 29 different sports. Used by more than 10,000 people every day, it boasts 7 pools, even a wave machine. Time is running out. Tomorrow, my father and I return to his childhood home, behind the wall. More than 3.5 million people belong to sports clubs in East Germany. Last year, the East German government spent an estimated $590 million on sports. Now, some critics, Paul and Diana and Tom, charge that this sports machine takes some of the spontaneity, some of the joy, some of the element of chance out of the whole thing. But the bottom line is they get incredible results. This unbelievable weeding out process, they've really refined it into a science.
A couple of things. The athletes themselves must have a better standard of living than the rest of the population.
They get cars. Most East Germans do not have cars. The athletes have cars. They have the nicest luxury apartments. They have a better selection of food. They have all the perks.
And then once their careers in sports are over, I assume that status somehow continues?
They go on to be the trainers, the star trainers, looking for more talent.
But if you wash out in East Germany as an athlete, you go into oblivion somewhere. There are many other things for American athletes to do.
That's true.
Right.
Absolutely true.
Tonight in our series Behind the Wall, that continues with a trip deep inside communist East Germany.
Paul Douglas joins us now with part 5 of his series.
Paul and Diana, obviously East Germany is a Warsaw Bloc nation, but I should tell you there is no great love between East Germans and Russians. After World War II, Americans helped to rebuild West Germany, but the Soviets all but plundered what was left of East Germany. After 42 years of waiting and wondering, Today would be my father's moment of truth.
Well, I'm back after 42 years, and I believe I'm in a time warp. Time has stood still. The town looked exactly the way it looked when I left in 1946, and it looks the same like all East German towns. It looks just like 1939.
This is my father, who came to America to attend college and thankfully decided to stay. Today, with a mixture of anticipation and dread, he would take me back to his boyhood home. Diestelo is a sleepy little village, deep behind the Iron Curtain, a 3-hour drive north of Berlin. Our welcome was a warm one. Even the mayor showed up, and a long-lost classmate my father hadn't seen since 10th grade. An hour later, my father and I walked across what at one time had been my father's backyard. The disappointment on my father's face was obvious.
We're standing in front of the house. This is the edge of the barn. Only the barn is still standing. The house was right here where we're walking. It started right here. This building was the garage, okay?
What happened?
The house was torn down. It was a capitalist house with 32 rooms, which didn't quite fit into the socialist picture. So there was no effort and no interest in preserving it. I'm not heartbroken that it's not here. It was a big old box and probably did not fit. This is the orchard I have planted in 1941. Yeah. We planted 4,000 apple trees, but as you can see, they are in pretty sorry shape.
Tomorrow we would return to America. But today I wanted to know my father's thoughts about the other Germany, the Germany most people would never see.
Things are getting better, slightly. I only saw 2 short lines in front of stores. More people have cars. People seem to breathe a little easier. The regime does not seem to be quite as oppressive.
Later, our East German guide, Victor Homela, expressed the hope that détente might just rub off on the 2 Germanys as well.
The relationship between the United States and the USSR, this of course has an impact, or at least provides a good setting for the 2 German states to improve their relationship.
On that upbeat note, we left Diestelo, hopeful that someday the 2 Germanys might share more than just a troubled border. In our travels, Paul and I, we noticed a sense of sadness among the East Germans, almost a sense of despair. Part of it may have been that people were reluctant to open up to us because we had an East German appointed guide tagging along with us everywhere we went. But spending a week behind the Iron Curtain really makes you appreciate what you have in the West. The contrasts are unbelievable.
Now, your dad, I know, is fluent in German, and you can get by speaking German as well. Did you two have the opportunity to sort of slip away and talk to people?
Sure, we did. But we were actually concerned about, I know it sounds ridiculous, but even having hotel rooms bugged and things like that. Again, being the first local TV crew to be permitted access to all these areas outside of Berlin, we weren't sure if we were being monitored or not. So it wasn't exactly a case of spying, but we had to keep that in the back of our minds.
You were cautious.
We were cautious.
Very interesting. Thank you.
Finally tonight, in his series Behind the Wall, News 11 meteorologist Paul Douglas shows us a rebirth of religion in East Germany and how meteorologists over there predict the weather.
Johann Sebastian Bach, a native of Leipzig, in what is now East Germany. We were more than a bit surprised to find religion making a strong comeback in this nation of 17 million people. Everywhere we looked, churches were being renovated with the blessing of the state. East German officials were quick to point out that, after all, Martin Luther was the first true socialist. He fought the system. Meet Herr Zimmermann, a devout Lutheran and a weather technician at an automated weather station near Potsdam. Every morning he makes his rounds, checking everything from rain in the rain gauge to the soil temperature.
Inhaltsstoffe.
Acid rain is a growing problem in East Germany, and special monitors keep track of trace metals and acidity in the air. Herr Zimmerman's wife is also a weather observer, and luckily they don't have much of a commute. You see, the weather station is also their home. There are 70 automated weather stations in the DDR, like the one that Zimmerman's run. Information comes in every hour, also from 4 radar sites and 4 airports around the country. All this information is funneled into the main meteorological bureau here in Potsdam, west of Berlin. 4 times a day, meteorologists examine the maps and try to come up with a new forecast. Professor Wolfgang Böhm is in charge of East Germany's weather service.
Well, tornadoes are something entirely rare here. In the entire GDR, we may have 3 or 4 violent thunderstorms a year that do damage. Every once in a while, we do lose some trees, but we do not suffer from tornadoes. We do have other weather problems, strong snowstorms in the winter.
Am Sonnabend und Sonntag wechselnd, vielfach stark bewölkt.
And this is the finished product, the evening weathercast on state-run TV in East Berlin. Perhaps a little dry by American standards, but they get the job done. Paul Douglas, News 11.
It's been an interesting series. Yes. That'll do it for us. Thank you very much for joining us.
See you tonight at 10. Good night.
Good night.